In the beginning of the tale, we meet Joe Braven, a carpenter from the village, toiling away amidst heavy snow. Joe is known for his hard work, diligently loading wood onto a truck to be transported by his colleague Weston to a distant factory. After his shift, Joe spends quality time with his family, especially his daughter Charlotte, while his wife Stephanie works late into the night. Additionally, Joe takes care of his ailing father, Mr. Linden, whose memory loss stems from an accident a year prior. Mr. Linden's confusion often leads to him misplacing items and wandering off, causing Joe great concern. On this occasion, Mr. Linden ends up in a bar altercation with some troublemakers, resulting in a brutal beating. Joe doesn't hesitate to step in and confront the attackers, forcing them to retreat with his intimidating demeanor. Thanks to Joe's swift action, his father is spared further harm. Following the incident, the police arrived to question Joe, thankfully absolving him of blame as he was seen as defending Mr. Linden. However, they warned that if a similar situation occurred again, he could face imprisonment. Joe then left to collect his father from the hospital, where the doctor warned of Mr. Linden's worsening condition due to head trauma sustained in the altercation. Despite the doctor's suggestion to move him to a nursing home, Joe remained determined that his family could care for his father at home. After treating Mr. Linden's wounds, Joe coped with his sorrow by chopping firewood late into the night, awakening Stephanie with the noise. She tried to console him and proposed taking his father on a vacation to their family cottage. Meanwhile, Weston's routine delivery to the mill took a sudden turn when he unexpectedly halted at a suspicious location, encountering a gangster and drug dealer named Haylett. It became apparent that Weston had been involved in distributing drugs with Haylett, and they were en route to deliver illegal substances to their boss when their car collided with a fallen tree and became stranded. The truck swerved dangerously, nearly tipping over, causing its cargo to spill onto the road. Unable to proceed, Weston opted to trek to Joe's cottage, where he stashed the illegal substances before the authorities arrived. They sought refuge at a nearby inn while awaiting assistance from Haylett's gang. Haylett then contacted his boss, Casson, the notorious leader of a significant drug operation in the area. He assured Casson that the illicit goods were secure and ready for pickup the following day. Upon hanging up, Casson violently punished his incompetent subordinates. The next day, Joe proposed a getaway to the lodge for Mr. Linden, also suggesting a hunting excursion. Mr. Linden, a former skilled hunter and sniper who had imparted his expertise to Joe, preferred carpentry despite his fierce demeanor. Upon reaching the lodge, they decided to tidy up the neglected cottage before embarking on their hunting trip. During their conversation, Joe broached the subject of the previous night's incident and the doctor's recommendation to relocate Mr. Linden to a nursing home. Hearing this, Mr. Linden vehemently opposed the idea, adamantly refusing to be placed in such a facility as he felt perfectly capable of taking care of himself. Meanwhile, Casson and his crew rendezvoused with Haylett and Weston, heading towards Joe's cottage. However, they halted at the entrance upon Weston's discovery of car tracks indicating Joe's presence. Casson swiftly directed his men to arm themselves, intending to forcefully enter the premises, underestimating Joe as just a mere carpenter who could be easily subdued. Weston, though Joe's friend, disagreed with Casson's approach but was powerless to intervene, fearing retribution from the gangsters. While surveilling the lodge, Joe was taken aback to find a bag of illegal substances in the warehouse. Furthermore, his father noticed footprints surrounding the cottage, and Charlotte unexpectedly emerged, having hidden in the car trunk to join the hunting expedition with her father and grandfather. Sensing trouble, Joe urged them to return home. As they neared the entrance, Casson ordered his men to eliminate Joe and his family. Thankfully, Joe quickly grasped the situation and opted to retreat to the log cabin. Joe and Mr. Linden secured the hut tightly while arming themselves to confront the gangsters. Meanwhile, Casson and his accomplices encircled the cottage from outside. Mr. Linden swiftly positioned himself upstairs, rifle in hand, while Joe instructed Charlotte to find refuge in a secure room. Joe attempted to reach out to the police and his friends via the radio channel, given the lack of cell phone signal in the area, but encountered issues with the radio's functionality. Ascending upstairs to assess the situation outside with his father's rifle, Joe was taken aback to spot Weston among the assailants, his own colleague. Joe ultimately opted to negotiate with Casson and his group, offering a portion of the illegal substances as a gesture of compromise, with the remainder to be surrendered once they departed. Joe's sole intention was to safeguard his father and daughter, yet Casson rejected his proposal, demanding the entirety of the illicit goods. As negotiations ensued, Weston unexpectedly interjected, prompting Casson to fatally retaliate against him on the spot. Witnessing this, Joe reluctantly agreed to hand over the remaining illegal substances, solely to ensure his and his family's safety. Upon entering the hut, Joe and Mr. Linden devised a plan of attack. Joe would engage the gangsters in close combat while his father provided sniper cover to eliminate Casson's hired marksman. Acting swiftly, Joe crafted an arrow from bamboo and concealed a decoy doll within a bag of drugs to deceive Casson's men. When the gangsters approached to retrieve the bag, Joe's arrow struck one of them in the head, creating confusion among Casson and his cohorts. Seizing the opportunity, Joe commandeered an ATV and escorted Charlotte to a nearby hill, allowing her to contact her mother and the authorities. While Joe distracted Casson, Charlotte attempted to conceal herself, but Casson soon realized he was being duped. Pursuing Joe uphill, Casson fired upon him, causing Joe to tumble down. In a desperate move, Casson instructed one of his men to retrieve the drug bag and eliminate Joe. However, Joe managed to evade capture, and to their surprise, the bag did not contain Casson's illegal substances. Exploiting the momentary confusion, Joe ambushed the guard from behind, overpowering him with brutal force. Subduing the gangster, Joe bound him to the ATV's wheel and dragged him until he collided with a rock, meeting a gruesome end. Meanwhile, Charlotte successfully reached her mother, informing her of the presence of gangsters at the cottage. Worried, Stephanie promptly contacted her friend, a police officer, who wasted no time in rallying his colleague to investigate the situation at Joe's cottage. As Casson and Joe continued their cat-and-mouse game, with Casson struggling to locate Joe, Joe utilized his hunting expertise, instilled by his father, to evade detection. Joe positioned himself on a cliff to disable Casson's vehicle, preventing the gangster from pursuing him. Simultaneously, Casson instructed Haylett to eliminate Mr. Linden, who was alone in the cottage. Underestimating the elderly man's capabilities, Haylett entered the hut, expecting an easy kill. However, Mr. Linden surprised him by firing back, initiating a struggle. Despite Haylett's initial advantage, Mr. Linden managed to overpower him, incapacitating Haylett by stabbing him in the leg before retreating upstairs to monitor the situation. Meanwhile, Joe, concealed in the forest, devised a plan to ensnare Casson's remaining men. Purposefully dropping his knife to provoke the adversaries, Joe climbed a tree and ambushed the gangsters from above. Joe relentlessly pummeled him, but he couldn't finish him off as Casson shot at him from a distance. Joe dashed towards the hut, dodging the gangsters' attacks. Casson continued his assault on the lodge, ultimately hitting Mr. Linden, worsening his already chaotic memory. Concerned, Joe urged his father to seek refuge in the warehouse while he dealt with Casson and his cronies. Meanwhile, Stephanie, armed with a bow and arrow like her husband, arrived near the hill. Just as adept at archery as Joe, Stephanie expertly took down one of Casson's men who had captured Charlotte. Stephanie incapacitated him with precise shots and further subdued him with a dagger until he ceased moving. Elsewhere, Casson and his cohorts regrouped, intending to breach the lodge and eliminate Joe and his father. However, before they could execute their plan, Joe used a heated iron to strangle one of the gangsters, nearly severing his neck. Furthermore, he scorched any gangster who dared to enter the lodge. Finally, the police arrived at the scene, putting an end to the chaos. Upon spotting him, Charlotte promptly guided him to the cottage before Casson and his accomplices could apprehend her father and grandfather. Shortly after, Casson located Mr. Linden, while Joe continued to dispatch the gangsters one by one. Using an axe, Joe lethally struck one of the gangsters in the head. However, as Joe hesitated to hand over the illegal substances, Casson ruthlessly stabbed Mr. Linden in the abdomen, resulting in his demise. As Joe grieved his father's death, one of Casson's remaining men attempted to shoot him, but Stephanie intervened, eliminating the threat from a distance. Seizing the opportunity, Joe swiftly dispatched the gangster with his axe inside the hut. Casson seized the remaining illegal substances and fatally shot one of the arriving policemen. Undeterred, Joe pursued Casson relentlessly. Meanwhile, another policeman called for urgent medical assistance and reinforcements, recognizing the escalating situation. Soon after, the police swiftly arrived on the scene just as Joe continued his pursuit of Casson through the forest, cleverly outmaneuvering the gangster by taking a shortcut. Following that, Joe outsmarted Casson by luring him with a rope. While Casson was taken aback, Joe seized the opportunity to snatch his illegal substances and guide him towards the cliff. Upon reaching the precipice, Joe laid a bear trap and concealed it beneath the snow. Casson, now confronted, challenged Joe to a tense one-on-one confrontation. Despite Joe's initial failure to ensnare Casson in the trap, he resorted to stepping on it while forcing Casson towards the cliff's edge. This maneuver resulted in Casson's demise as he plummeted onto a coral reef below. In the aftermath, Joe managed to climb back up the cliff and reunite with his family, albeit mourning the loss of Mr. Linden. Despite enduring numerous trials, Joe emerged victorious, concluding the movie. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell if you want to watch more videos like this. Thank you for watching and see you again soon. Take care.